everyone! For today's how-to, I'm going over how to use After Effects and Photoshop to make those graphics the internet loves, animated GIFs. First off, what exactly is a GIF file? .gif stands for Graphical Interchange Format. These are a raster graphics format that support transparency and animation. As a drawback though, they can get very pixelated and have a limited color palette. These can be created right inside of Photoshop, but at least for me, animating in Photoshop when there's an actual animation program in the Adobe suite is very tedious. For this video, we will be using Photoshop later, but for now, let's get into After Effects to make a loading animation like you would see on a website or app. As I've covered in last week's fundamentals video, we'll start things with a composition. These can be any settings you want or need depending on the project. I will say though that your average GIF isn't going to be a 30 FPS 1080p video. For a loading animation, I'm going with 512 pixels by 512 at 8 FPS. For the average website, you don't want your loading time to last even a full second, so I'm going to make mine exactly 1 second and hope that it never fully cycles. For what I'm doing, I'm working on an animation for the portfolio site redesign I'm currently building, using the techniques I've covered in my rotator animation how-to video. What I've done is take my brand's icon and make a rotator spinning 2 copies of the icon in both my brand's colors, which will load up if they're looking at the portfolio graphics on a slower connection. The animation at this part though isn't really what this tutorial's about, so we'll move on to the part where you have the animation done. There are 2 ways we can do the GIF, and both will need to go to Photoshop because Adobe, in their infinite wisdom, decided to remove the rendering options from After Effects. Since CS6, Photoshop can open and edit QuickTime MOV files, so if you do have Photoshop CS6 or newer, we can send the comp to our render queue, which by default will save the animation as a QuickTime MOV file, set where we want to save the file, give it a name, and click render, and we'll have our file in a few seconds, if you've made something similar to what I've made. I wouldn't normally recommend all of this when there's Premiere and After Effects, but for GIFs, this is awesome. Drag your MOV file into Photoshop and it will become its own layer. Going up into the window menu at the top of Photoshop, we can open the timeline window to see what we're working with. With a video, it'll show you a timeline just like in AE, albeit with much less options. Now real quick, not everyone has CS6 or higher, and not every GIF is working with video footage, so let me cover using image sequences. Back in AE, we can add the animations comp to the render queue again, but instead of a QuickTime, we'll make it a sequence this time. To do this, all we need to do is click where it says lossless and change where it says QuickTime into sequence, either JPEG or PNG if you are using the transparencies. A PNG sequence is what I'll be using here, but again, it's up to your project. Things are a bit different for sequences than they were for the video. First, we open up one of the images in the sequence in Photoshop, so we'll have a file to work with. Then I drag the other frames into the same open file and hold down return or enter for a few seconds until all of the images are now layers in the file. Now that we have all of our frames inside of that file, we can start actually making the animation. In the timeline, in a file that doesn't already have animations, we can choose to make a video or frame animation. For an animation using our layers, we'll be setting up a frame animation in the timeline. When we do this, it'll create our first frame. Frames in Photoshop will save the states of your layers. What this means is that which layers you have visible can be changed in each frame. You can also add, change, or remove layer styles, and these will also change as it goes. For mine, I just make each frame a single layer by holding down Option or Alt and clicking on the eye toggle of each layer. This will solo that layer and make it the only thing that's visible. To add a frame to the animation, use the page icon on the bottom of the timeline frame. I then go through the animation, making each layer its own frame by repeating this process. Keep in mind though that you can have more than one layer visible at a time. Once all your frames are set up, you can give it a play to watch it go through. By default, it will be set at 0 seconds per frame, which means that each single frame will instantly flow into the next. By clicking on where it says 0 sec on the bottom of each frame, you can change this to longer durations though if you want to change how long everything lasts. You can also select multiple frames and change the time on one of those frames, and it will change all of them that you've selected. Also by default, the animation will only play once. This can be changed by clicking where it says once and changing it to loop 3 times, forever, or a custom number of times you can set. With your animation done, whether you use the video or frame timeline, we can now save the file. To save an animated GIF, we need to export it under the File menu. In newer versions, you can export as a GIF, or if you have an older version, or have a version that has inexplicably non-functional features like my computer's Photoshop has, you can use the Save for Web option under the same menu, or by pressing Command-Option-Shift-S on a Mac, or Control-Alt-Shift-S on a PC. In this window, you can see a preview of the image, choose the file type preset, see the table of colors where you can pick which colors will be in your image and change the image size. If you're saving a GIF file, you can also change the looping options in this window as well. When changing the file preset, you're presented with a number of GIF options, but these all have similar options. The 32, 64, or 128 is the number of colors that will be produced in the GIF. This can also be changed by the colors list beneath the presets list, and it will go up to 256 colors. Whether it's dithered or not will change how well the image details will be preserved even as the colors are posterized, and this too can be changed manually. You can also make it transparent or not if you're working with layers that have transparency. Changing the web snap option will change how the colors are made from the colors in the actual image. Lastly, if you're not sure on how it'll look still, you can go to the far bottom left and click Preview with the option to change which browser it's showing in the list next to this button. What this does is it will open a simple web page with your GIF as the only content, which will show you how it looks on a web page. When you're satisfied, hit save. Down on the bottom, you can change it so it'll export as images, HTML, or images and HTML together, settings for what kind of image it will be, and if you're using certain slices, which comes from a kind of web design that's thankfully dead now. The standard options will usually work fine though, so hit save again and you now have your GIF. As always, I hope you've all learned something and enjoyed yourself doing it. If you have any questions, thoughts, or other feedback, you can let me know with a comment down below. You can also like this video and share it around, which helps with Google's rankings, and I'm planning to be back here every Friday, so be sure to subscribe for more awesome content. Have a great day, everyone.